Hey, good morning everybody. So if you're a new or prospective reptile keeper, we're going to walk out in the backyard here for a little bit this morning and talk about some hints and tips, some things to look out for, and hopefully help you guys make some good decisions and really get started off on the right foot. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Intrepid Exotics. So there's nothing quite like sitting out here enjoying one of the last warm days out here in North Carolina. And it's a really good opportunity to talk to you guys. And we're going to be talking about some things for new reptile keepers to look out for. And maybe help you guys make some good decisions. A couple key points to go over. And we'll try and make this pretty quick, because you can never learn anything in a couple minutes. And any of us that's had any reptiles for any length of time knows that you're going to spend hours upon hours upon hours listening to people talk and reading things and learning about all the animals that you're thinking about getting before you get them, because that's what we all do, right? After you've got something home, it's a little bit too late to figure out that it's not the right one for you. So everything that we're going to talk about are just really basic considerations that you guys need to keep in mind as you're getting started, either with reptiles as a whole or, taking on a new animal. There are, beginner, intermediate, and expert level reptiles, and a couple of the key points that we'll talk about as we reference those is what kind of financial concerns you're going to have, how much they're going to cost you, how much space they're going to require, how much time they're going to require, and what you're going to need to do to provide a safe and healthy environment for them, and what you need to do to make sure that you're being safe, taking your own safety into consideration as well. Because, like I said, there's expert level reptiles. You certainly don't want your first reptile to be a adult Nile monitor or a crocodile or alligator snapping turtle, things of that nature. Those animals can hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. And conversely, even the ball pythons and the bearded dragons, they may not hurt you, but you can hurt them. So you want to make sure you're doing everything right. And the way you do that is to just filter through all the mountain of information that's out there, and take everything in, see what the general consensus is from reputable people. And then, if you've got the opportunity to get around somebody that's a keeper themselves, that's had these animals for a while, whatever you're looking at getting into, by all means, don't be afraid to walk up and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help getting started here. I think you'll find in most cases that, people that are in the hobby, we love helping people get into it, and we don't want to see anybody get into trouble. So more often than not, you'll see most of us really making ourselves available to work with folks and give everybody an opportunity to see what we have, and maybe help them get to enjoy the same experiences that we do. So when we talk about cost, now you're going to be walking through the pet store, maybe getting some dog food, whatever you're doing, and you walk by the little ball python display and you see, man, they've got this cute little snake in here. It's only $50. I can do that. Well, you can just about guarantee that any reptile that you get, you're going to end up spending at least 4 times whatever the cost of that animal is on getting them set up. You can't just have them put them in a box, take them home in that box, and think they're going to live any kind of a good life. There's heat requirements, there's humidity requirements, there's space requirements, and this is all stuff that you need to research and look up on a specific animal before you buy them. You know, when you go in, look at it. Say, for instance, you're looking at a $50 animal. Now, go ahead and walk down the aisle. Easy for me to say, right? Go ahead and walk down the aisle and, you know, look at the cost of the enclosures. Look at how big the animal is going to get, how big of an enclosure you're going to need to get for it. Look at the substrate, the hides, the heaters, thermostats, snake hooks, temperature guns. Look at how much they're charging for feeders down there. You know, you're going to need to have mice, rats, depending on what you get, pigs, goats. I mean, some of these animals can put away some food. And so you got to take all of that stuff into consideration. I think you'll find that for a $50 reptile, you're going to walk out of there spending $200, $300, $500 getting that animal set up. And then, of course, you're going to have to maintain it. So definitely something to consider. And, you know, when you walk into pet stores too, you've got to be kind of cautious, and your ears should really perk up. If you're looking at something and say it's a unique animal, you know, it's like a chameleon or a monitor lizard or a tegu or something like that, and you're in there talking with the shop owner, and they're not asking you any questions, they're not kind of trying to feel you out and see how much you know, or, you know, they're just immediately walking up and saying, yeah, you know, if you take that out of here right now, I'll knock $50 off of it for you. And anybody that's a responsible keeper or anybody that deals in reptiles at all should be quizzing you a little bit. They should be kind of picking your brain to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. Because I know none of the reputable people that I work with want to see their animals just go off with somebody that's going to kill it. There are people that are out there just for the money, though. So you've really got to be able to distinguish between those people. It's always best to, you know, if you walk in and you see something that you're interested in, but you're not 100% sure, you know, best case scenario, if you don't know the place that you're in, is let it ride that day. You know, somebody might walk in an hour later and buy it out from under you. It happens. But I think the most responsible thing to do is, you know what, go home, do a couple hours of research, figure out how big it's going to get, what it needs, and, you know, sit down and kind of price out everything. So that way when you go back in there and you start talking with the person, you can have a basis to have a conversation with them about it. And it's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to help you make better decisions, and two, it's going to help you feel out the integrity of the person that you're dealing with. If they start saying things to you that you've learned are not true, you know, maybe you want to reconsider who you're doing business with. And that all ties in, you know, cost and making sure that they have everything that they need. And ultimately, that's really going to impact your whole experience with that animal. Now, you're going to find too, if you've never owned a reptile before, but you're an animal lover, you got cats and dogs and chickens and ducks and whatever, you're going to find reptiles have got an entirely different thought process than our cats and dogs do. Now, you know, our dogs they're lovable, they come up, they love the attention and whatnot, and there's a reason why they use the distinction of a reptile brain. It's very instinctive. They don't have that same cuddly nature that, you know, your other animals are going to have. Now, you can socialize them, you can get them comfortable with being around you and so forth. And of course, all of us love to convince ourselves that, yeah, man, my snakes love me. They'll sit there the whole day just hanging out on my neck and they just love it. Well, you've got to come to the realization that it's the heat coming off of your neck, and that's what they're digging. Typically, your reptiles aren't going to love you. Most of the time, they're going to be happiest when you're leaving them alone. So that's something to take into consideration too. Now, of course, that being said, there are things that you can do to socialize them, and some of these reptiles are pretty smart, and you can somewhat build relationships with them and have good experiences where you know what the animal naturally likes to do, and you can enrich their habitat and enrich their interactions and so forth. But for the most part, we've all had to come to the realization that if we own reptiles, they don't have much of an emotional connection to us. So if that's what you're looking for, stick with the puppy dogs. Now, housing these guys and giving them the best life, even with the beginner reptiles, the ball pythons and the bearded dragons, things of that nature, they can be tricky. That's what a lot of people will recommend that you get started with. And there's also a lot of people that you'll see getting concerned, frustrated, and feeling like they're not doing the right thing. Particularly with your ball pythons, you can't tell you how many times I've heard, "Man, my snake won't eat for me. It's been a week. It's been 2 weeks." And of course, the first question is, well, what's your temperatures? What's your humidity? Do they have hides? How much space do they have? And how old is it? Now, all these pertinent questions that are going to determine how healthy that animal is, because that's the first thing that you look for when they stop eating. Second thing that you look for is, well, it's a ball python. Sometimes they decide to go off food. And if this is your first reptile and you're used to feeding your dog every day and your cat every day, and now all of a sudden you've got an animal that eats once every 2 weeks, it can be a little disconcerting. Takes you a little while of seeing the natural cycles of these animals to realize that. Some of my bigger snakes will go 4, 5, 6 months without eating sometimes. And even still, kind of unnerving. And you're really happy the time that you go up and offer it and they actually take it, and you're like, okay, good, welcome back. So keep that in mind too. And one thing that I see a lot of, especially in the box stores, you see a lot of baby bearded dragons in there. And I took on a bearded dragon a while back that somebody had. It's got really bad metabolic bone disease, and that's brought on from improper lighting and improper diet. Bearded dragons, they need a lot of heat, UVA, UVB, calcium, all of these things that all need to tie in together to make sure this animal's able to metabolize the food that it eats and stay healthy. And I think a lot of people, they get them and they love to interact with them and so forth, and they may not be on point as far as this is the way I need to take care of this animal, making sure that it has everything that it needs, and then all of a sudden the animal starts to deteriorate and they're wondering what happened. So even the beginner reptiles, you've really got to pay attention to educating yourself on what they need and making sure that you're providing it to them. And of course, that's going to go back into cost. Light bulbs aren't cheap. Heaters and thermostats aren't cheap. Enclosures aren't cheap. So you got to be prepared for that. So these are some of the things that we all need to take into consideration when we're getting a new species of animal. And you may ask yourself, why is this guy standing out in the woods behind his house talking to a camera to a bunch of people that he doesn't know? And it's because I remember what it was like when I first got started. And I was just a sponge for information. I wanted to know everything that I could and made sure that I was doing the right things and so forth. And for any of us that have animals that may be subject to some of these reptile bans or legislation and so forth, it's really important that we do what we can to help not only educate the people that are never going to own a reptile in their life, but to help the newer folks that maybe wanting to get something and making sure that they don't get themselves in trouble, get in over their head with something. It's possible. It happens all the time. Like I said, I've got a couple animals in my house right now that are a result of somebody else getting in over their head. So, doing this as, right now it's what I can do to kind of help give back to the community that's helped me get started. And, the more people that I get on here, liking the videos and subscribing to the channel, it's just going to help, expand my reach and be able to get more information out to more people. So, of course, I encourage everybody to get on board and throw your comments down there if you've got any other questions. I know there's a bunch of things that I didn't go over, but I encourage everybody to get on and interact. If there's anything that you want to know that I haven't mentioned, I'm more than happy to set up and talk about that for you as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go here pretty quick. I think I'm gonna start another segment on how I got started and some of my personal experiences with it. So hopefully that'll be helpful too. So you guys get out, make sure you enjoy the last days of the warm weather, and I will see you next time on Intrepid Exotics.